Every society has a mythology, or as some might call it, propaganda. Most of the time it's embedded in the woodwork and hidden in plain sight. You don't really know where it is until you go looking for it or investigate things that other people take for granted. And you're like, hey, what's up with this? Oh boy. So Thanksgiving is one of those things that we used to take for granted, and it's been separated into claims in wildly different directions. No, it wasn't a happy-go-lucky party where everybody was just having a great time, and it also wasn't a massacre specifically. But like any propaganda, what matters is what's left behind. The lies of omission matter. But the story of Thanksgiving has less to do with what happened in the early 1600s and more to do with what happened in the late 1800s. Because that's when propagandists and mythologists working for the U.S. government were trained to come up with narratives that would bind the country together in this new imperialistically expansive period. This was happening against the backdrop of the new Jim Crow South and the Western Indian Wars, including the destruction of the buffalo. And some version of harvest celebration feasts were happening in different parts of the country for one reason or another, but they thought, let's bring this together and unify it. One of the major pushers for this was actually the gal that wrote Mary Had a Little Lamb. I said it would get weird. And the 1621 harvest meal wasn't actually some deep unifying moment. This was against the backdrop of deep political tension and the threat of war. A temporary gambit to alleviate the prospect of war. And they broke bread, but that didn't even last very long. Those settlers were replaced by more and more and more, and with each successive generation of settlers, they cared less and less and less about the indigenous people that occupied the land. Leading up to 1637, when there was actually a major raid on Camp Mystic, which led to 500 to 700 deaths of indigenous men, women, and children. After which there was an official declaration of a day of Thanksgiving, quote unquote, for the massacre. And there were several other massacres after that, and after that, lots of Thanksgivings declared for all sorts of various reasons, even some non-genocidal things. But the long story short, the origin was not innocent, it was deeply political. Because the story put together in the late 1800s was one meant to whitewash the actual history and to bury the interceding massacres, to cast the civilizing factor as the great force pushing out into the West. If only these natives knew we know what's best. So now you know the truth. It's not exactly a lie, but it's definitely brainwashing.